Reality Tea Times 2, the podcast where we discuss all the trash reality TV we love to hate. I'm Tanika, and today we're going to be discussing the next couple of episodes of Love is Blind. I know I'm kind of behind now because the second batch came out, but I'm getting there. So, yeah, so that's what we're going to be doing. Most likely 3 and 4 in this episode. We'll see how it goes. But let's get into the reason we're here. So, Love is Blind, episode 3, Hunger Games for Love. So, we're back to the reveal. They kind of run to each other. It's really sweet. She says she loves his hair, and they're laughing and giggling so much with each other. Which, I mean, I'm here for it for the most part. She loves the facial hair. I'm a facial hair girly too. And they're just giggling. And she's like, "You look like Tarzan." She apparently had a crush on Tarzan as a kid. So, like, she's definitely all for the Tarzan look, I guess. And she's like, it's just chef's kiss. And he said this is like, he says that he's actually been only growing out his hair for about a year now. And he says that he's actually growing out his hair to about, I think he said, what did he say? I think he said how long he's growing it to. I think 13. Am I incorrect? Anyways, so that he can donate it. This, so sweet. Anyways, enjoyed the reveal. I will leave my predictions till we have everybody. But yes, that's that. And they kiss, y'all. They kiss. Great. So that's that. Okay, so Madison is planning on showing Alex that she is in this with him by showing him Beryllian. And my bitch, I think this thing was ugly. Maybe it's the green. I don't like green, but it's just... Okay. Anyway, she says, I just wanted to say I'm not the detached attachment anymore. But wait, you've literally said, like, am I incorrect? Hasn't she said that she would have ran away even just recently? You can't say that. You're now lying or curating yourself to him, to what he wants and needs. And this is, I don't know, man. They do this picture of the beach. They're lying down on the couch, picturing the beach and the stars. Apparently, they both love the stars, and so she actually wanted to be an astronomer when she was younger. Which, yeah, I like the stars, space, all that. It interests me quite a bit. So, yeah. Anyway, I do like okay. Alex ends up asking, like, can he sleep with Beryllian that night? She says yes. But then I question, does Mason know about Beryllian? Because if he walks in with Beryllian, which he does, what if Mason knows about him? And he can kind of be like, wait a minute, it's Beryllian. You know what I mean? And again, like, for a woman to give her stuffy to, can you imagine? Sophie would never. But it's just like, that's a big step, I would think. Because I mean, like, I don't sleep with stuffed animals anymore. Obviously, I did when I was a kid, but I still have my stuffy that I had since I was a baby. probably something I would carry on to my children. I would never allow someone else to have my stuffy unless it was my kids. But anyways, that's that. So Mason and Madison end up having their date, so that is what it is. Then Meg and Mason have their date, and she talks to him about his confused comment, like being with her, talking to her makes him feel more confused or whatever. She's like, because I'm not confused. I'm not confused. And he says, I have not connected with anyone like you before. But wait, are you not talking to Madison for whom, like, I mean, I guess I'll give him it just because you guys are connecting in such a way where you guys are connecting on movies and conspiracy theories and stuff like that. So I guess. But then they start talking about these emerald. Listen, I'm not going to Google because I don't want it to mess up my I can't speak today. Algorithm. But what emerald tablet things that are in the pyramids, and it's just more conspiracy theories. Apparently they glow. No one knows what materials they come from or what makes them glow. And that's where the aliens come in because, well, shit, like, they have to be the reason why. I can't. Listen, I'm all for a healthy dose of conspiracy, you know? But this shit, I can't. I can't. I just can't. Moving on, y'all. Um, then we see Lorian with Dave, and they kind of talk like kids and like, what chores do you prefer to do? He says, I could see myself proposing to you. And at this point, I'm just like, I would like that because I think like he may need that. However, I don't think at this point, I don't think it's gonna happen. Uh, yeah, I was kind of starting to feel like maybe Lauren is just not it for him for the reasons that personally, I think Lauren's too good for him. I really do. I think he would be intimidated by her as well. I I was starting to see, as much as I wanted it for her, I was like, I don't think this is it. So then he has his date with Molly and they talk, lifestyles, um, political beliefs. They talk they talk about like their stands on the parties and stuff like that, like Republican, liberal. And he does bring up, just trigger warning, he does bring up abortion, in particular more so abortion rights. And I was actually really impressed that he's the one that brought it up. Really was. And he kind of says, like, why do the Republicans even care? Thank you. Why does anybody, not even just Republicans or just Republican Party, but people who have this belief, whether it's because you're Republican or because of your religion or both, what does it matter to you what someone is doing with their body? Are you old white people or vastly religious people going to raise and then finance my child? Like, are you going to do, why do you care? It's a real simple question, a question that never gets the answer that I desire to hear. I don't want to hear, well, that's life. You're killing a child. All of life is a gift from God. I don't care. Now, I've kind of said my stance on it, personally speaking. Personally speaking, I would not, only because of what I go through and the fact that I don't know if doing that could potentially cause any issues going forward with me getting pregnant. I've struggled to get pregnant over the years. That for me is more where it comes from. But I don't give a fuck what anyone else is doing. And I think if my body was in a different place and I happened to have gotten pregnant before I'm ready, I might have done the same thing, you know? So it's just, who gives a fuck? Mind your business. It's real simple. So I loved, he kind of got brownie points from me with this. So I love that he said this. And he says, like, what if, something were to happen? You know, what if, like, you have a child with your rapist? Am I supposed to just give birth to my child, my rapist child? Maybe really strong people are able to do that. And kudos to you if you can, or even if you can go through with it to have the child up for adoption. Kudos to you for being able to do it. But there are so many people who can't, understandably. So again, I implore, what's it to you? Anyways, he says that even on dating apps, they actually have added, which it's been a minute for me, but they've actually added a section of what is your political stance? What party do you belong to? Because they can understand, I guess, that there could be people could be so steadfast in their beliefs, politically speaking, that it could create rifts, that it could, because again, personally, I can understand as an American right now that if you're a Democrat or you're a liberal who do not have the same views as a Republican right now, you may not want to deal with that. I can understand that 100%. It's just incredible that that's become something that you need to add these days. So she asks about if your children came out as queer and like what would you think? And he has the best answer to that. He says that he will support them. Um and that's all kind of what you that's the only thing you can expect because again, I've been there where I've had to ask this question of people before. My partner has given a very similar answer to Dave in this moment. My ex-husband didn't. I will not repeat the things he had to say, but it definitely concerns me, bothers me because I'm just like, listen, not necessarily saying you need to change your views because that's not my responsibility to change your views. It's not my responsibility to change your stance on things to um to do this is not my responsibility to change you. It's not. But what I do expect is that you will support your children because that's what I expect my husband and the father of my children to do. And let's just say I didn't get that either. So it's sad that it's a question you have to ask. But unfortunately, it is still a question we have to ask. We need to do better. So they didn't talk about their moms, being stay-at-home moms. And I don't know if he's saying that he necessarily wants her to be a stay-at-home mom, but I think maybe she might want that option, even temporarily. So I'm not sure, but so then the women build a fort. Fun. Moving on, we got Devin in Virginia, and he says, "I think we need to get deeper because it's true. They're not having these deep conversations." They are not getting to know each other really. I feel like I knew nothing about Virginia prior to this episode. And I'm just like, it's true. They're not having these deep conversations. Again, don't know what day it is, but it's just like, he basically consents that she isn't telling him everything. Then we have Brittany, and they play, what would you rather? And he at the end of once they play that, she asks him, "What's your middle name?" And he says, "Oh, God, I hate my middle name. Hate my middle name." It's a very old school middle name, very old school black middle name or name, generally speaking. He's like, "I'm named after my great grandfather," and he's like, "My middle name is Early." She's like, "Oh, Early." She's like, "That's in a movie." Cause Jimmy got soul, Jimmy got soul, Jimmy got soul. Okay, and when she started, cause that's listen. Okay, if you don't know what movie that's from, I'll educate. Which I at this come on, this point, come on, you come on, Dreamgirls. That is one of my favorite scenes of the entire movie because I loved seeing Eddie Murphy play a fool. It was well play a fool, but it was also sad. He was but one of my favorite scenes. It's one of my favorite songs from the movie. Um, so yeah, when she said that, I'm like, yeah. I'm like, Dreamgirls. Love Dreamgirls. I need to watch that movie again. Anyways, then we see Madison with Alex again, and she brings up, I'm talking to someone else, and I know he is talking to someone else too. Yeah, we know. She says, so, no pressure. But I would like love to just focus on you. Like she's starting to kind of figure it out in this episode. I don't think it's solidified until next episode, but she's starting to figure it out. And she says yes, that she would like to just focus on him. And he's all in to do that. And they talk, I think pickles is what I wrote. And I think she says, I would eat your pickle. And that's a euphemism. Anyways, he's he says, I would love for you to eat my pickle. And they both realize, oh, well. And I think, like, it's funny how she can kind of be a little more sexually open, so to speak, with Mason, but she hasn't quite gotten there with Alex. And this is kind of like the first look into them having any form of sexual chemistry with each other or being able to have these conversations, even if it's talking about pickles. Um, it's interesting. Um, so she talks about not being able to eat when she's stressed, which I can relate to. I am the exact same way. I have been that way since I was a kid. If I'm upset, if I'm not so much stressed because that's kind of difficult, but if I being if stressed to the point of because like you've been through something or you're in a heightened mood, no appetite, none. Appetite is gone out the window, and yeah. So I totally understand her in this. So they talk about her issues and whether he can kind of handle these issues, and I guess we'll see. And um she senses that he leads in fear. Yeah, I mean, I think especially in a situation like this, especially for him, when he hasn't always felt accepted, then yeah, I can kinda understand him kind of leading in fear for sure. It's not surprising, really. So Meg has a spider in her pod. Listen, the spider gonna have it. It's its pod now. I'm out. She is trying to kill it, but she's like, you know what? it's fine. He can stay over there. I'll be over here. Um, so he would like to, I think, see, or he's, oh, yeah. He talks about sex, potentially having sex on the retreat. And she says that she hasn't had sex in like 2 years. So and I think she's not opposed to the idea of having sex with him, I think. So she's like, what's your fantasy? And he says he likes to role play. And she tells him, when she's like, when the date's over and they're leaving, she says, I miss you or miss you. And he doesn't say it back to her. Like, you could, I don't know. But, and she questions, like, why doesn't he ever say it back to me? Because he isn't in it with you. One day I gotta pull the plug. And I feel like, again, like well, I'm kind of going ahead here, but she kind of will say at some point, like, I don't want to be the default. Honey, you would be the default. Anyways, then Madison has her date with Mason. And says, I know, like, you're with your other connection or has a date with you or something like that. And he says people have usually broken up with him because they fall in love with someone else. And she asks, like, so how do you feel about your connection, your other connection? And he says it's good. And Madison says, I know the other person you're talking to um is all in on you because she knows who it is. And I think Meg knows who his connection is. And she's like, I do have my connection as well. And she says, I'm getting a little more affirmation from my other connection than she gets from him. And he says, like, well, I mean, what he's feeling is real with Madison. He hasn't had this kind of connection with somebody else. And he doesn't really want to lose that. Well, that is it for episode 3. We're going to take a quick break here. And when we come back, we'll do episode 4. And I am back. So let's do episode 4. So your girlfriend has a boyfriend. That's what the title of this episode is. So the women are talking about celebrity sightings, whatever. Ben is talking to Sarah, who we don't really see a lot of. But anyways, he is ready to run into a brick wall, I think is what he said. And he's like, are you my girlfriend now? And then he drops the I love you just randomly. He's like, and what I mean is, I'm falling in love. Then they talk about politics as well. I found these 2 episodes anyways, were very politics heavy when I understood it with DC, but it's just like, it's really politics heavy. But again, I think just because of where we're at right now, maybe that's why. So, I don't know. So she says she never paid attention, or sorry, did he say? He said that he never paid attention to politics. That's, yeah, that's a problem. I would understand that being a problem. If he never really paid attention to politics or doesn't really take a stance on politics, especially for someone who maybe does. Um, yeah, I get that. She says that she didn't focus on politics until Trump went into office in 2016 and then George Floyd. And he says he kind of uses the term, I stay out of it. I stay out of it. Here's the thing. You can't stay out of something that is affecting you, or at least affecting people you know. Where politics or where the atmosphere currently is, especially in the States, you can't have this head in the sand mentality because it's happening. It's happening to people you know. It's happening to people you may love. It's happening. And for you to just be like, well, don't follow me, so I'll just stay out of it. I understand. I think that's problematic. Even if you are reading up on things, understanding to at least be able to vote. Now, he said he didn't vote in the last election. I think, listen, I was saying to my mom, if I was an American citizen, I would have voted. Hell, even without being an American citizen, I wish I could have voted. And to have someone who could potentially, even if you think like my one vote isn't going to make a change, even you don't know that. Your one vote may have made a change. Or maybe the people who think like you, your votes could have made a change. So it's just, I don't particularly like it either. Especially since she kind of comes across as a person who that's very important to her, especially with a sister who is a part of the LGBTQ plus community, a community that's being potentially now going to probably be affected by everything kind of happening, and has been affected by everything kind of happening with the Trump administration. Yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem. Anyway, he asks, like, do you need someone to think how you do? And I don't think she is saying, I mean, I think there are certain non negotiables for her, but I don't think she's saying she needs you to think like she does. I think she just wants you to think about something, like, have some kind of stance, even if it's a stance she doesn't agree with. I think she wants you to have a stance in the life you get to live as an American, or just as a human, and you're not taking that stance. I think that's the biggest issue for her. And she says that she can be open, um, to an extent, but things like human rights, equality, those are things that are non-negotiables, which I did say. Because I think, again, those are all things that kind of fall into the life her sister gets to live as a person who can live authentically as herself, a person who can just, who she is. So I think, again, her non negotiables are things that are just basic rights for someone like her sister. So that I get. And that I said before. I think there are non negotiables for her. But I think she would just like you to have a frickin' stance. And I think like I would like that too. Um, they go into the quarters at this point, and he's like, I have a girlfriend. And she says, I don't know, ma'am. Now, realistically, he does say, we did have a kind of a hard conversation. But she says to the girls, like, he didn't vote. He doesn't seem to take a stance. And I think, again, as a person who that is important to her, ugh, I don't know. I don't know. Then we got Mason and Madison, and he tells her um, that she is the person that he's been thinking about, that she is the person that he is committed to. So, like, what? Are you already running off, Meg? She appreciates him affirming her in that way. And again, she kind of had to ask for it. So once she asked for it, he went off and thought about it. Then he comes back and he's like, you're it for me. I shouldn't have to ask you. to basically validate me, you know? Um, but then my question at this point is, okay, so what now? Because she has Alex, he has Meg, so what now? And she says, I don't have this kind of have a stupid conversation. She's like, I don't have sweet tooth really, but I do love cream pies. Oh. Okay. Listen, Madison, I mean, come on. Similarly, for different reasons, with Devin and Virginia, there is no depth to their conversations. Instead, you're throwing out these euphemisms, and it's just like, sometimes not even, just throwing it out there. It's like, don't lead with your sexuality. You're trying to get married at the end of this. Sexuality or having sex in a relationship is should be the last thing you discuss because not so much the last thing, but talk about it. Make sure you're compatible for sure. But this is fucking ridiculous. Things like I like cream pies is not something to make sure you're compatible sexually speaking. Because of course he hears you refer to cream pies and doesn't think about the food, but is thinking about legitimately cream pies. Like something you find on Pornhub. And he, of course, just feeds into it. He's like, yeah, me too. Let's say that. And she tells him that you are the only person that I have talked about sex with. Which, again, just historically speaking, I would think that's an issue. Because, yes, it's fun and exciting, and I get it. I like talking about sex too. But I've also established a relationship with somebody on the emotional side of things where at least I have that. And I can have the fun banter and I can have whatever and I can talk about that with that person. I like I will say in my two, you know, major relationships in my life. Well, actually, I don't know if I can really use my ex-husband as we didn't have sex right away, sure, but like I can't use that as example. I don't know if I can use any of them as example. But here's what I'll say. I established the emotional connection to an extent with each man and had that fundamental part of the relationship. And yes, you can talk about sex, and yes, you can talk about compatibility, but I'm not throwing out there, I like cream pies, and letting him literally just eat at the palm of my hand. I mean, and not only, but again, I get angry with him too, because I mean, how can I? He's a man, but I get angry at him too. And it's like, you're feeding into it. It's funny because I feel like, who is it? Is it Dave and Molly? Like, they'll kind of tiptoe around it a little bit. But there was at one point in one of these episodes, or maybe it's the fifth episode, or whatever episode it is, because I haven't gotten very far, where he says, or it's brought up, very, very small situation that they kind of bring it up, and he's like, okay, well, let's talk about something else. He changes the subject because, yes, that is not the most important thing. Mason is just like, no, 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 no. He's just eating it up. It's so annoying. Anyways, then we see him with Meg, and she asks, how do you feel about us? And he says, I don't think it needs to be put into words. Sir, yes, it does. And she says, well, did I right here, my butt is angles? Is that what she said? Anyways, oh yeah, she said tingles. What is tingling? She says when she gets nervous, her butt tingles. She says it only happens during breakups or something like that. Usually when I'm doing it, but like that's usually when I get nervous. That's a hint. Anyways, Madison has definitely figured out Meg is mad at as Mason's other woman. She says her coming in so vocal every time after her dates makes her desire Mason less. Fine, that's okay. Here's the thing, I do think it's more about Meg than it is about Mason because Meg is trying to kind of create a wedge a little bit because she's like, "Help my man," kind of situation. But also, I think she is very loud. Just her personality is, is loud. She not so much that she is loud, but her personality is loud. So it's just like she can't help herself. Anyways, now we got Madison and Alex, and I think this is the big one. Yeah. So they kind of talk about their dream house. They talk about whether they have been in love before. He has. She hasn't, which that's problematic. And I think he even says as much like that's interesting. But maybe to kind of bring it back, she has not been with the right person in order to fall in love with them. And she tells him, I think that my other connection might just be a friend. Damn. Now he's a friend. You were just talking about how much you love cream pies and you did that on purpose. Okay. And now he's just a friend. Listen, I don't talk about like that but with my friends. I don't even mention cream pies with my boyfriend, much less. Not that I wouldn't, but it's just not something that ever comes up. I like cream pies. Like, no. Um, but it's just like that's how you talk about with a friend. I personally think, and this is where I see this is going a little bit. I personally think she's trying to justify it in her mind that she doesn't want Mason because of Meg and how Meg is acting. I really don't think she wants to be with Alex. I think she thinks Alex is a safe choice because Alex doesn't have another connection. Mason does. Alex is going to pick her. Maybe Mason won't. I personally think she's picking Alex because he is the safer choice. And I don't know if I like that because I want Alex to be happy. And don't, I don't know. I don't know. So she's like, I know what I want. I know what I won't. Name the movie. And I think it's you. And then all of a sudden, we just heard hearing Billie Eilish starting playing. I'm like, damn, we got the money for Billie? Shit. Anyway, and with that, they're officially together. But now she has to break up with Mason. And he asks, so just out of curiosity, who are you dating? And she tells him it's Mason. And he says, well, he says to her, he was dating Sarah and Meg. And she's like, oh, that's interesting because my connection, I think that's what she hadn't told him. But she's like, my connection is actually, or me and Meg seem to have been dating the same guys, is what she says. And then this is when she says that her other connection was Mason. And he comes out of the pod and he says, I have a girlfriend. All excited and everything. And the women can literally hear the men like cheering because she comes in and says, I have a boyfriend. Which obviously Meg is like, oh my God. And she says like, it is Alex. But there's like, let's keep it on the down low because I still have to break up with the other guy. And of course, Meg is kind of hearing this. She's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Like, she's going to break up with Mason. But Meg is also like, but I don't want to be chosen by default. Again, you would be chosen by default because he's not shown you're the priority. Honest to God, I don't even feel like he has really made Madison feel like she's really a priority. I think he's just interested in Madison because he probably thinks she's hot and she's exuding the sexual energy. Something Meg isn't doing because Meg is maybe just a teeny bit more classier. Or honestly, she really is more classier. She's just a little cuckoo magoo, but she's classier in comparison. Just in that connection, like I see a more classier version of Madison with Alex, but it's just and with Mason, she's just putting it out there, and I think that is what attracts him to her, which is not what the show is about. So Alex ends up telling Devin, "I know who she has to break up with, and I feel horrible." And even though he's not saying the name, he does say he's walking in right now, and they catch on that it's Mason. So, and the funny thing about this is, without really realizing what he's doing, Mason goes over and hugs Alex as a congratulations, realizing he's congratulating on him being in a relationship with the other person he's speaking to. It's, oh, I can't make this shit up. Anyway, then we got Devin and Brittany. This was also a tougher conversation. So, ugh, um, so he talks about him playing basketball, but how he would get this pain in his back. Now, this is just his story, just trigger warning for drug use. We're going into the weeds a little bit. Um, he says like he couldn't walk. Um, he there's not a lot he could really do on his own. They started taking him to physical therapy, acupuncture, different things to try to like deal with the situation. But then he started taking ibuprofen because he kind of heard, I guess, what he ended up telling Virginia later is that he heard that ibuprofen was good for pain, which it is. So he would start with the prescribed dose. That prescribed dose went up to 4, then 12, then 15, then 20 a day. So he he got addicted to the ibuprofen. He said that from this, whether it was the pain or the ibuprofen or what was going on or just everything, he started having, again, trigger warning, just trigger warning for, well, I'm going to say it straight up. He started having suicidal ideation. Didn't say he necessarily had a plan in place or anything like that, but he was just having some thoughts. He started turning to God to see if he could get healed, or praying to God to be like, give me a sign. Can I be healed from this? Because he was going to doctors. Doctors couldn't figure out what was going on with him. He went to another doctor one more time. And it was then that they told him that his femur bone was rubbing against his pelvic bone. How was this missed? How was this missed? You have this man in excruciating pain, and you're just like, I don't know. What? So that was the situation all along. He got surgery, and he's been fine ever since. And I guess he also had to combat his addiction. but he did. And the thing with him is, which I can maybe understand, I don't want to necessarily, you know, say he's incorrect for his thoughts and feelings, but he says that he exhibits or feels shame from the addiction and whatnot. Here's the thing. We're also saying it's against God's plan and all that. God will still love you at the end of the day, right? If you want to kind of take it there. But at the same time, shit happens. Do I agree with it? No. But shit happens. And at least he could realize he was doing the wrong thing. And that is all you can ask. He got the help that he needed, and that's all you can ask. There are people out here who have a drug dependency, have addiction disorder for just, in comparison, no reason. This was a person just desperate for help. And you, as long as you didn't carry on with the addiction, nothing to be ashamed of. Even if you do carry on with the addiction, you have nothing to be ashamed of because it's an illness. We have to remember that. Being addicted to anything, it's an illness. Um, so yeah, it's sad to hear him talk about himself at this time in this way. So she, and I'll talk about this at the end, she talks about her experience in discovering her sexuality. She felt like she maybe was hiding her sexuality, that she couldn't hide anymore. She said that she has had experiences with women. Um, she said she didn't see herself like being with women, dating women, or marrying a woman. Um, I don't know if she necessarily gives herself a label. I will kind of put something out here in a second, but um, she just had sexual experiences with women. But she says that the last woman that she had an experience with could see herself with Brittany, but she could only see herself in a marriage with a man. And she says that's her experience. Now, whatever she labels herself as, if maybe she doesn't label herself as anything, that's fine. Um, I know of people, and again, this is high school experiences. I don't know where they stand now, but people I was in high school with who identified as bisexual, whether they acted upon it or not. Um, I don't know that journey for them or anything like that, but they, well, at least one person in particular I can think of, maybe would have had experiences with women in similar stance of what Brittany's talking about, but didn't see themselves in a relationship or at least a marriage with women, saw that with men. Because this particular person I was in school with was only ever in relationships with men, even though she identified as bisexual. So I don't think it's crazy. What I'm getting at here is I don't think it is crazy that you might have sexual experiences with women, identify as bisexual or whatever, um, but just not necessarily want to be in relationships with a woman. Do I think that's wrong? In just my opinion, because that's what I've seen before? No. Maybe it is. I don't know. But I think there maybe could be people who would be like, that's fucked up. And I get it. But I don't think for her that's crazy, right? Um, so she says it's more. Sorry, I'm gonna move back up here. Make sure I got everything here. So yeah, Devin asks, like, so do you still have, interest in women? And she says it's more about the person for me. Maybe she's pansexual. I don't know. But she says more about the person for me. And he says, are you not interested in women anymore or what? Like, here's the thing. I think he wants this clear cut answer from her on what her interest is. And the thing is, it kind of shows this toxic masculinity kind of coming out of him a little bit of, oh, Jesus, like, I don't want my wife. It's kind of gave Rob a little bit. Maybe not as bad, but it kind of gave Rob of, oh, you're bisexual. But like, I don't want you like having situations with women once we're married. Did she ever say that? The difference between Sophie and Brittany is Brittany's lived a life, right? She's 34 versus Sophie being 23, 24. So she's lived a life. But she never once said she wanted to have sexual situations with women once in a committed relationship with somebody, whether that's a man or a woman. Well, in this case, she's talking about marriage, and for her, marriage means man and woman, which, again, she says for her, but she's entitled to say. But I can see how that could also be misconstrued in the community as well of, oh, marriage can be with men and men or women and women, which, yes, it 100% can, but for whatever reason for herself, she says she doesn't see that. But that aside, I it just kind of, yeah, gave this toxic masculinity on his part where he's like, oh, well, I mean, uh, like he's breaking. It's like, my guy, she never once said, you know? Um, but she does say to him, if I am with you, I'm with you. Like she's not gonna be with you, but still want to be with Tina. You know what I mean? So he says, okay, well, this is a lot for me to process, which totally understand. He does say that he's never been in a situation with someone who has been in same sex situations, relationships, or you want to call it in her case, which again, I can understand. But again, it's just like, I don't know, maybe I'm just crazy. Maybe because I have been exposed to this before with an ex who had been in same sex situations, and it didn't bother me, you know? It didn't, like, yes, ask the questions that you need to ask that I think are important to ask as women. Um, because, whatever, as long as you're protecting yourself, whatever, and that goes both ways, as long as you're protecting yourself. But just in the grand scheme of things, it didn't bother me. So it's just, again, maybe it's just me. But to me, like, this doesn't bother me. And I don't know. I think he's blowing it up more than it needs to be. Anyways, he's like, I'm not saying nope, I'm not saying that. He's like, I just wasn't ready to hear what I heard. It's it just feels very shamey on his part. I didn't like it. Anyway, in the quarters, Devin tells Alex what Brittany told him, and he says, like, this is not what he was hoping for. I don't know. But anyways, then we see Devin on his date with Virginia, and he kind of feels that there are things not being said between them. She says that she's shy. Then why the hell did you come on this? Because again, coming from a person who's also been shy, yes, but eventually, like, you've been talking to this person for how many days now? you should be able to slowly open up or be comfortable with him. Um, like, when does that happen? But he says marriage is happening at the end of this. Like, we need to open up. And she says she has trust issues, but he tells her what he told Brittany about his addiction. And she gets very emotional, same as Brittany did. Brittany got also very emotional and kind of just lifts them up. And I think it was at this moment, with this date, especially after seeing his date with Brittany, I was like, okay, I think I get it. Virginia, I think, is the one that's for him. So then we have Danielle and Taylor again. We haven't been seeing a lot of them, maybe because she needed to get her voice right. I don't know. But she says she can sometimes get real excited. Um, and something else that I can't read my handwriting of, but anyways, she does whatever that is 4 times. She Oh, sorry, yeah, I got it. So she says that she could get really excited and she could tell um a story, the same story, like 4 different times. And she says she gets that from her mom because her mom does that too. And she does talk about the fact that her dad is sick. And he says, you know, if you ever need to talk about anything, like, I am here. If you have to go because of your dad, I'll find you. Yeah. Every breath you take, what else those words again? Every breath you take, every move you make, he'll be watching you. It's not weird at all. It was sweet, but I just had to make a joke. Anyways, um, she says that she has no reservations about Daniel, so that's great. Now we have Molly and David. They're on their date, and they, for whatever reasons, are talking about Madison and Alex. But then all of a sudden he starts saying, oh, TMI, but my right testicle is throbbing. Oh, fuck. Listen, I don't have a dick and I don't have balls, but I feel like that's bad. I don't know. Um, I've never heard my boyfriend say his balls were throbbing. Or has he told me something similar? I don't know. Never heard that outside of, like, I don't know, do your balls throb during sex? Like, I don't know. I don't know. I have a vagina, so I don't know how, how this works. But then he asks her, like, what kind of ring do you like? Because I keep hearing that maybe this is a question I should ask. So what kind of ring do you like? And she says, like, well, I used to kind of just want to do a tattoo. She wasn't really into the ring thing, but now she kind of just wants the bling. Nothing too big or too flashy or anything like that, but she would like, something really nice and simple. He does say that I'm talking to someone else, but, you have been my top since day one. And that isn't surprising. And then we have Lauren and Dave on their date, and Lauren says, Molly came in, what she did do, comes in, and is kind of saying that she is your number one, what she has been doing. And she asked him, like, did you say that? And if that is how you feel, then I don't want to be here. And I don't want to be here either. She's like, you need to figure out, like, what you want. She says, you were my number one from day one. But if, again, like, that's kind of the end of the episode, but, like, if she is not your number one from day one, like, what are we doing here? You know? Anyways, that is it for this episode. That is it for this episode of Love is Blind. Next, I don't know what's coming next. If I'm going to take a break for a bit and do an OG, but I'll probably try to finish up the last batch first, and then we'll take a quick tiny break and go to OG. But anyways, that is that for this episode. I didn't talk about Patreon, but let's talk about it now. Don't forget, Patreon is live. Link will be in the show notes. Go over there and join. Currently talking Jersey Shore. This past month we did the Ashley Madison documentary. I don't know what's coming next, but there is one coming next. Just don't know what that is. Can't remember. But yeah, that's what we're doing over there, so you can come and join. Um, but yeah, that is it for me. I will say here, just because I won't add it to the outro at this point. I have a new social media account, Blue Sky. So I will be shortly adding that. I probably will be able to add that soon, adding the link to the Blue Sky or my handle on that um in the show notes as well if you're interested. I kind of like the feel and look of Blue Sky, so that will be in the show notes as well. But that is it for this episode. So if you like what you heard, please rate, review the podcast on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Also, don't forget that you can also share us with everyone in your life if you really love this. And I do want to read those reviews. I'm definitely getting 5-star ratings, but I want to read those reviews. So send me those reviews and I will read those 4 and 5-star reviews on the podcast. Also, we're on every one of your favorite podcast apps. Every one of them, including you can find us on YouTube at Reality Tea Times 2. If you want to connect with us, you can do so by going to either Facebook or Instagram at Reality Tea Times 2. You can also find us on Twitter, TikTok, Reddit at Reality Tea Times 2 Pod. We also have our email, which is at realityteatimes2 at hotmail.com. Definitely want to hear from you guys. And we also have our new website where you can listen to all of these episodes. You can review the podcast on there as well. You can connect with me in any way, all the stuff. It's all there, and you can find me there at www.realityteatimes2, all spelled out, .podpage.io. It's there. And don't forget, I also have my other podcast with my friend Mikkel, Next Take Podcast, where we talk about all kinds of different topics. But you can find us on any of your favorite podcast apps over there as well. Or you can also go to YouTube and you go to Next Take Podcast, as well as our website, which is solo.to/Next Take Podcast. So yeah, there's that, and that's basically that. And again, don't forget, if all of this information is overwhelming, we do have all of the links, everything in our show notes. But that is it for now, guys. Thanks. Bye.